Hey guys, welcome to Animals Perspective. My name is Mason Valancourt, and today I am introducing you to a pretty pink bird. Her name is Primrose. She is a Rosy Bourke parakeet. Most people actually think that parakeets are the same thing as budgies, but they're not. Budgies are just one type of parakeet, and Rosy Bourkes are another type of parakeet. If you're wondering why she's pink, it's because she's a Rosy Bourke parakeet. She's not dyed. I didn't dye her feathers or anything like that. This is her natural color. You wouldn't actually see Rosy Bourke parakeets this pink in the wild. They kind of have more of like a dusty gray color covering at least the top of their body and most all, but they also will have slight pink feathers on their chest and their belly. Rosy Bourke parakeets originate from Australia. They are grasskeets, which means that they thrive off of eating grass seeds and other things that you would find in the grass, like bugs and roots and flowers and teas and stuff. Like, there's lots of things out there. Not just seeds, but that seeds is a huge part of their diet, at least. Lots of times, if you're familiar with birds, you'll hear that an all-seed diet is not good for birds, and that is correct. An all-anything diet is not good for animals. Variety is always the best. But with Rosy Bourke parakeets in general, they actually do thrive off of high seed diet because that's what they eat naturally in the wild most of the time. It's high in fats, high in proteins, but it's okay for this type of bird because you really need to look at where they come from and what they eat naturally, and that is exactly what she eats. They are mainly in central and lower South Australia. They fly all around though. They don't stay in one place. They like to go all around. Also, parakeets are true parrots, although their talking ability is much lower. Parrots don't actually talk, they mimic. They mimic each other, and that's how they come up with their languages, so when they're in our care, they do learn to mimic us. And parakeets can learn to mimic, but because they're small and I think their vocal capabilities aren't as enhanced as some other like bigger parrots, say African greys and stuff like that, so they usually just chirp and talk. If you have two together, if they're paired, usually they will mimic each other and never learn to mimic their human. So if you do have one that's mimicking you, usually, not always, it's a single bird with a home with people that are talking to it very often. One thing I have noticed with her though is she'll do the mating call. It's kind of like a little dance. Sometimes when I sweet talk her, she'll do it. Yeah, it's kind of like a little mating position, and she'll do a special chirp with it, and she's looking for a mate to mate with her, and that kind of makes me a little sad because she doesn't have one, and she does it to me, and I feel bad because what am I gonna do, just let her do her thing. But anyways, the reason I think she started doing that is because maybe she was just lonely. But another huge cause that a lot of people don't consider is when you give birds mirrors, they think, oh yeah, you give your bird a mirror, it thinks it has a friend. Well, yeah, but also when it thinks it has a friend, it's going to show behaviors and display certain things that they require to be answered. So if she is doing a mating call over and over to a mirror, to a bird to the mirror that she thinks is another bird, and it's not responded, it can really mess up birds. It can mess up their egg cycles, it can mess up other things. So yeah, when you give birds mirrors, it can kind of trigger certain behaviors that you don't want triggered, that aren't good to be triggered. What is that? What is that? Do you want to go on my shoulder? Parakeets can take a lot of time to tame, but she's amazing, and I'm doing tons of positive talking and positive reinforcement with her. So everything that she does that's nice, I praise her for it. And praise equals food. So when she hears my happy voice, she also gets food. I'm not giving her millet right now as I'm doing it, but usually I'll sweet talk her and feed her millet too, and she really likes that. I had Primrose with me, but she decided to ditch me for her perch because apparently it's a lot cooler than I am, so whatever. Some other things that I would like to say about Rosy Bourkes are, do they come in other colors? And yes, they do have slight color variations. Although it's kind of more to the grays and yellows and pinks, you won't see any Rosy Bourke parakeets that are blue or something like that. They kind of stick in their color range. It's not very fluorescent or vibrant changes between them. But yes, they do come in different colors. Some of you might also be wondering how big she'll get, and although I don't have her sitting on my finger to say it right now, she is full grown. She won't get any bigger than the size that she is right now. Some of you guys might be wondering, well, she's in my pet shed, and in my pet shed I have some of my other animals. I have my rats and my bunny and my guinea pig and my ducks during the nighttime, not during the day. They're outside during the day. But can she meet my other animals? And the answer is no. No, she cannot meet my other animals. The reason actually that I have this blanket behind me, it is not my lame attempt at, you know, a studio background or something. It's actually there for a reason. And the reason is, if Primrose lands on the top of the cages, they're metal cages. They have bars. There's bars underneath the cages, so if she lands on the cages and grabs onto the bars, the rats have the opportunity at least to nibble at her feet. They'll nibble at her feet. I will say, never mix rats and birds. Just don't do it, because they'll kill each other. One will kill the other. Usually the rats will try to kill the birds, and if the bird is big enough or strong enough or, you know, moody enough, it probably will kill the rat first. But that is why my cages are covered and I keep everything very separate. I keep all of the animals very separate from each other when they're out and about, you know? So right now, the Rosy Bourke parakeet is out flying around. I have all of the cages covered. I have one eye on her, one eye on the camera, so I know what's happening constantly, and if there is a problem, that hopefully I can solve it before it happens. So no. Rosy Bourkes, or my Rosy Bourke, any bird in general, cannot meet my other animals. How to tell if she's happy or sad. And there's lots of ways to tell this with birds or Bourkes in general, but with any animal, I would like to tell you guys that the biggest thing that you can do is just pay attention to their body language. Observe. Observation is the biggest thing. Like, if you're observing your animal's behavior when they're eating, seeing what they're doing, what they're acting like, how they're moving and everything when they're just chilling eating, then you'll have at least some perspective on what they're like when they're not eating, when they're not happy, when they're not this, when they're not that. So the only way to tell, that I have learned to tell, if Primrose is happy or sad, is just by watching her body language. When Primrose wants space from me, she'll kind of hiss. She'll kind of put her head down like this and kind of hiss at me. And so I know that I don't stick my fingers in her face at that time. I know she doesn't want it. If she's happy, she'll kind of flirt with me. She'll kind of happy chirp and kind of like dance around a little bit, and she'll even like puff her feathers up a little bit and just kind of like, ooh, ooh, look all pretty and happy. I mean, maybe I'm making it sound a lot easier to tell if they're happy or sad, but for me personally, I observe my animals' behavior so much that it is really easy for me to tell if they're happy or sad. That's pretty, I don't know. Like, communication between them is different, but if they're happy or sad, that's pretty easy. You might also be wondering how much space a Rosy Bourke parakeet needs. And the answer is as much space as you can give them. For most any animal, especially birds, the more space you give them, the happier they'll be, the better it'll be for them. They fly naturally. Birds do fly, believe it or not. And so when they don't have room to fly or to stretch their wings, it can cause serious issues not only in their physical body, but also mentally for them. So it's really important to let your bird out to fly for hours a day, but also give them space in their cage so they're not confined to such a tiny little space. That's not natural for them. It's not natural for us. In the wild, they are not confined. They do not live in cages. They at least have the option to go if they want to go, to explore if they want to explore, to stay if they want to stay, to sleep if they want to sleep, to move if they want to move. They have the options in the wild, so it's best to give them the options in captivity too. Speaking about cages, it is really important to enrich your birds. And the way to do that is to give them lots of toys, lots of things to do, lots of perches, lots of food, lots of variety, lots of options. That is what keeps any animal happy. One of the best things to do for them is to just make them toys. It's really easy and cheap to make your own toys for them out of pieces of woods and other pieces of paper, and or even certain types of fabrics that don't have loose string and stuff I've seen birds play with. Just anything to keep them busy is really, really good for them. How long do they live? Well, they can live about 10 years, but hopefully 20. What is she doing? Primrose, you better not get in there. She's trying to make a nest or something. She's doing something up there. You might be wondering if Rosy Bourke parakeets can live with budgies, since they kind of look alike and they're both parakeets, you know? And the answer is no, they can't. It's really best to not mix species, just like I was saying before. It's best to not even mix species of birds together because they didn't evolve together. Rosy Bourke parakeets evolved with other Rosy Bourke parakeets, and they're in the same family. You know, they at least speak the same dialect of language and stuff like that. It's just not best to mix birds, so I would never keep her with another type of bird. They don't need to live in the same cage together, you know? So it's best to, you know, maybe you can have two different types of birds, and maybe they can be flying around a room together at the same time, but they do not need to live in the same cage together. Did you hear that? That was the door. I'm sorry. It interrupted me mid-sentence, but although she's just, you know, a little Rosy Bourke parakeet, she is the sweetest bird I've ever met. So I mentioned earlier how to tell if she's happy or sad. This is her when she's really happy and content. If you see the feathers on the top of her head, they're a little bit ruffled. That means that she's comfortable, you know, she's very happy. Speaking of behavior, this is her mating display. When she does this, she's asking me to mate with her. But back to the feathers on her head, you have to really be able to tell your bird's body language, because the bird could also be ruffling its feathers and telling you that it doesn't want attention or that it doesn't like whatever you're doing to it. So you have to kind of be really aware of that. I also wanted to take just a quick second and tell you guys about some of the safety protocols that I have to follow with my animals and having them out and about and stuff, because you can't have your animals locked up 24/7. They need like hours of time. Some of the things that I do when certain animals are out and others are locked in the cages is, like for the rat cages, for example, I cover them in a blanket when Primrose is out and flying around. And then I also have a mesh magnetic screen cover thing over the door that I come in and out of. I'll show you guys in 1 second, and that stops the rats from going in and out. It stops my cats from coming in. It stops Primrose from ever flying out. It stops bugs and spiders and stuff from at least coming in the door. This, the screen mesh door thing is like one of the best things, honestly, I could have ever purchased for this shed. So if you see the lines, that's what it is. It's just a mesh that goes over your door, 2 pieces, and then they're magnetically stuck together. And you can literally just open the door and it shuts on its own. Like that. Yeah, there it is. This is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing Primrose and meeting her and hearing a little bit about Rosy Bourke parakeets. And kind of just about my pet shed too. I went into a little bit of detail about other things, but it really was just about Primrose today. So I hope you guys enjoyed meeting her, and if there's anything else that you guys want to see, please go ahead and write a comment on what it is down below, and I definitely will get to it. So thanks so much.